My main role is I'm the Assistant Dean of Teacher Education in the College of Education. Second job is that I'm the Education Technology Coordinator for our master's program within the Department of Teaching and Learning. The third thing, which is why I'm here with you guys, is that I'm the Faculty Athletic Rep. In addition to that, I serve on the Division I Council for the NCAA, representing the Ohio Valley Conference.
Welcome to TSU Human Performance Sports Science Podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of sports science and innovation, right here at Tennessee State University.
We are your hosts,
I'm Neil Monet
and Franka Sindicic, and today we are taking you on an exciting journey to educate, entertain, and keep you up to date of happenings right here on our campus.
In each episode of TSU HPSS, we'll bring you exclusive interviews with our expert faculty, coaches, student athletes, and our students from our departments who are making stride in this field.
You will gain the insights into the latest training techniques, nutrition strategies, and sports psychology breakthroughs that are now shaping the future of sports performance.
All while bringing it to you from an HBCU perspective.
Hello everybody and welcome back to our HPSS podcast. Today our guest is Dr. Nicole Arrighi, our faculty athletic representative. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us something about yourself and what is your role on the campus?
Oh, I have so many roles, but I'll try to keep it really, really simple. My main role is I'm the Assistant Dean of Teacher Education in the College of Education. Second job is that I'm the Education Technology Coordinator for our master's program within the Department of Teaching and Learning. The third thing, which is why I'm here with you guys, is that I'm the Faculty Athletic Rep. In addition to that, I serve on the Division I Council for the NCAA, representing the Ohio Valley Conference.
So can you tell us more about your role as an athletic representative?
So as faculty athletic rep, one of my main responsibilities is to serve as kind of like the liaison between the Department of Athletics and academic affairs. So I want to make sure that across the campus, our student athletes are having a wonderful experience, but they also are remembering to have balance in both obligations of being great competitors for our sports teams, but also taking advantage of the academic benefits that they have here at Tennessee State University. So we want to make sure that faculty are mindful of their travel schedules, particularly when they're in season, that if there's any accommodations that they need as a result of traveling, whether it's proctoring exams or normal accommodations that don't give them an advantage over other students, but is, again, mindful of their realities, that I facilitate that, because sometimes, like if a player is injured, they're getting situated at the competition site or dealing with the sports media team, but the professor may not know that they can't log on that day or at that specific time. So kind of helping the professor to understand the realities of being a student athlete. For example, you guys are not driving around in Ferraris with like 6G Wi-Fi. No. So it's not always realistic to assume that when you're on a travel bus that you are going to log on into class. That's probably not the most realistic thing. It's probably better to think about ways to, have classes recorded or think about those things that still allow you to engage, but still, again, be very mindful of the student-athlete experience. In addition to that, at times we do have situations where I have to serve kind of as a mediator to make sure that students, when they're dealing with situations, maybe a student-athlete and a coach, that I can serve as that impartial person, just to make sure that you are having a well-rounded experience, finding balance, mental health and wellness in all aspects of your experience here at the university.
That's an amazing role, and it really clicked to me as an athlete. And yes, we need you. We need you to make people understand our situation and how complex it is. Because it seems, it's from the outside sometimes it looks easy to say that, it's not because you're traveling that you can't do this or do that. But actually, it's harder than that, and it's more complex than that. There's more into there's more into it. But what motivates you to work in your field? Is that something you always wanted to do as a kid, or is it something you start doing?
So which field? My education life or
Great question. I forget.
Which hat are we talking?
It's a great question. You do have multiple roles, but this role, especially as a faculty athletic representative, how did you get into it?
That's a great question. That's a December 2019 pre-COVID life. Actually, the predecessor, it was my mentor within the College of Education, Dr. Celeste Williams. She was the previous FAR. She needed to step aside, and so I was actually recommended to the president because it is a president appointment to serve as faculty athletic rep. And at that particular time, my immediate initial duty was to participate in this search for the athletic director. And so I was like, yeah, that's easy because faculty members serve on search committees all the time. And so I was like, yeah, I can do that. And then it was like, yeah, we also need you to come to games and you'll help out with like making sure that students are eligible, go into class. I'm like, again, school teacher, I can do that. Students going to class, yes. We got A.D. Allen was recommended and hired. And then, COVID happened. And so there was no sports. And I was like, cool, that's perfect because I'm on a committee. I'm thinking it's a committee. I'm on a committee and I have nothing to do. Perfect. I really didn't know what was going on. And so then when sports kind of came back, they were like, yeah, and as a matter of fact, this is the crazy thing about it. And this is, I don't know, this maybe more before a podcast. The first official FAR duty was January of 2019 at a tennis match. Hadley Park walked in, and that's when we found out that Kobe Bryant had passed away. Like, that was my first, official, I'm going to do a FAR thing. I'm going to show up. I'm going to introduce myself and say I'm the FAR. And I was all ready to go, and I see people crying, and they're like, something happened to Kobe Bryant. I'm like, this is not how I want to be met as a FAR. I'm going to back out. I'm backing out, folks. So, but, yeah, so this was really a learning experience because I recognized that part of my responsibility was educating the faculty of the institution about all of our sports programs separate from football and basketball, men's and women's basketball. And a lot of the faculty didn't realize that we had a volleyball team or a golf team or a tennis team or a softball team. And I think that's, it may vary depending on how visible and programs are. But that also helped me to understand how there was this big chasm between sympathy and understanding the realities of student athletes if you're not in those larger programs. Because when we were asking faculty, how do you best support, or what do you think about in terms of giving a quality academic experience to a student athlete? They're like, I don't have any student athletes in my class. They all graduated, or and they knew, again, those football players. But they were like, but you have 2 tennis players in your classroom, or you have a golf, volleyball, softball, 2 basketball. Really? Where? And they had zero clue. And so that was what really got me interested, I guess more engaged in understanding my role. But I had no prior training. And I think from the NCAA side, they like it that way because you have truly the best interest in bringing a quality academic experience. I want you to walk away with a strong return on investment. We get a great competitor and a great student athlete. We want you to walk away with a great education. And I think my FAR colleagues across the membership, NCAA membership, are really compassionate about that.
So I have a question. Since you're also educating the faculty, are you also educating the students? Mm-hmm. Because I do remember first time when I came to US, I transferred from Texas. My coach, first thing that she told me, when you walk to the classroom, go up to the professor and you have to say that you're a student athlete. And I was shocked. Do you encourage your athletes as well to do that?
Yes, and I work closely with, Assistant AD Kenitha Stokes in the Athletic Academic Services Division here on campus. And that's a really big part because again, I found out that a lot of the professors, they just don't know. And so they make a lot of assumptions, like they're tired in class. And then it's like, let's break down. Let's go ahead and deconstruct the day in the life of a student athlete. What time do you think they get up in the morning? Oh, maybe they're coming into class at, 8 o'clock. So I'm guessing they get up at 7:59. Like, no, I'm glad you think that. They've been up for like 3 hours doing, training, and they've gone, go to eat, or they're doing, drills, or, there's all of these different things. They're studying, they're going to class. I hope that you have a social life on campus. But there's like all of these things that they're doing, and they're not just students, they're not just athletes. In many cases, they're managers, because they're trying to manage whatever community service aspect that they're trying to do. If you have an NIL deal, you have obligations over here. And so for each student athlete, you could be talking about just like a small entrepreneur or a full-fledged enterprise. And again, there's just a lot of misconceptions, because depending on their educational experience, if they've gone to a larger institution, well, clearly, like if you're seeing the value of knowing who your student athletes are, because it's a big part of the infrastructure of the university. If you're coming from a smaller campus or a mid-tier conference, or even internationally, the role of a student athlete, it looks a little bit different. And so there's a lot of bias that you have to kind of call out and hopefully address, and just being very realistic. Again, for some reason, they think there's like this special cafeteria, like, on campus, we have like the main student eating area, faculty dining. For some reason, they think that there's like this trap door, like the secret hallway, where like there's like lobster and caviar, and like the student athletes are like, yes, I'll have filet mignon today, and everyone else is just eating chicken, and you guys are like, can I have a Cornish hen? It's like, no, they're right there. Like, they're literally sitting right there having a hot dog. Now, I don't know if there should be having a hot dog, sorry, coaches, but they're sitting right there. But they just have this huge misconception that you guys are flying first class to, and like they're going to like St. Louis. They're flying first class. Like, I don't think so. I'm down there. Now the flights that I've been, I'm maybe on the wrong flights, but no, I think they're like flying in, they're flying out. But again, not having that awareness has really required me to have that education, and then to encourage student athletes, don't be invisible. Please don't sit in the back. Let them know, I'm a student athlete. You should be receiving my travel schedule within the first 2 weeks of our competition season, to look out for that. We encourage student athletes to get the syllabus, so that we know if the class is online, hybrid, in person, so that we can have those conversations. My biggest pet peeve is making sure that we have all of those things in place pre-midterm, because after midterms, it's just so much harder, because it's like, I didn't know. And like, why didn't you tell them you were a student athlete? Why didn't you tell them like you had a concussion or something was going on, and you're now like in the C range? Because by that time they formed an opinion, and now I have to work harder to kind of like explain all that stuff.
It's good to hear that somebody has our backs. But
some make it easier. Some sports teams make it easier than others. So
yeah, I do agree that. I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of have to stay our own and like handle it ourselves. But it's good that you're also here to help us if somebody forgets about that.
Yeah, and Bursar, financial aid.
They're killing.
They're different beasts. But yeah, I know my team over in the College of Education, they know, they kind of see the athletic career coming in. They're like, she's in there. Like, who? Bursar is like, let me make a call. Like, give them their money. Give them their money. But things like transferring in, I mean, each institution is set up differently. And I think those auxiliary services of the campus are unique, because they don't understand that the athletic calendar, is not in sequence with the academic calendar. So just because you think in the fall it's just football, it's like, no, there's volleyball, and volleyball like hits the ground running like immediately. Football maybe can be, and it's like, we have a student coming in, they need you to evaluate their transcript. We'll get to it, like, yeah, today. Well, we'll get to it like now because we got to know now because their bus is leaving and I'm sitting there and I have a child to pick up from school. I just need to know if they're eligible to play.
Yeah.
Now.
Now,
Lock the door now. Like I need you to do this now.
we're going to throw out those situations ourselves.
Oh yeah, no. Jen has had Jen Bell. Shout out to you, Jen. Has had to. I mean, we've met at the LaBelle concert. Was like the best one ever, like the best story ever. Like we had I think it was men's basketball, and we were like, hold up your cell phone. Like Jen's on one side of Bridgestone Arena doing like this, and she's running around. I'm holding my phone, and she's running around. Sign it. Where's ADL? I'm like, I think he's right there. Sign it. So we've had some great, like, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to compete if they're eligible, but we get it. But again, those other auxiliary services, they don't always get it, like dorms and making sure they don't close housing and that there's food over the break. Like, no one's in the dorm. Yes, they're basketball.
Yeah.
They're in the dorm. No one's in the dorm during
That was
spring
over
break.
summer.
Like, yes.
Over summer.
Yes, they're there. They need food over. Yes. Do you need to eat? Like,
Would be nice.
yeah. You need food? No, the cafeteria's closed. Like today. Like no, until August. Like the human can live off of food for how many? They need water. We gonna need somebody to cook for the who's on the band. I can't help the band, but band and our student athletes. So we have to kind of do those checks because they just kind of assume everyone's gone for the summer. Yeah. Student athletes don't. I'm sure they would want to go home, but yeah, they don't get to go home for the summer or winter or spring. I don't know if you guys ever leave. Leave sometimes.
Sometimes we get the time off. Yeah. Even though when we're home, we still get the workouts on our email.
I think you're covering your tracks. Is that we have to know we're home?
Yeah. Like I'm streaming you around, just so you know. Okay, so what are the other compliance that you usually typically do as well for NCAA?
So I didn't mention this. So I'm on a subcommittee called Strategic Vision and Planning Committee at the NCAA level. So a lot of the compliance thing is really centered around just making sure that there's equity between each division and then each level of conference play or conference. I feel like that makes sense. Edit it out if it doesn't. Yeah, so some of the compliance things really deal with just, again, making sure that there's equity and fair play. So fortunately for me, the things that come onto my desk are typically relegated to TSU, unless at the national level, we're dealing with things that have a membership impact. Other things are typically handled by our compliance office, and I think that the benefit of that is to make sure that it's addressed in a timely manner so that, if it's a recruiting violation, they wouldn't need to bring me in for that. There's already a process and procedure in place for that to get handled and rectified immediately. But again, anytime it starts to infringe on any academic eligibility issues or things that hurt the student-athlete experience, that's typically when I will get the call.
Okay, and are you overviewing every sport on the campus or just several?
Yes, I serve as the FAR for all of our sports here at Tennessee State University. I have heard that there are institutions that have fall semester FARs and spring semester FARs, and then obviously some of your larger institutions, there may be multiple ones just to make sure that everyone is equally accessible to make sure that those needs are being met. I think I'm fortunate that our campus community is more intimate, that it doesn't have to be that complex. And fortunately, even though I wear multiple hats, I still I think I have a good system in place that I can get things done. But I guess I'll let the student athletes tell me in another podcast, because that's not true.
Would you be able to walk us through your daily life? Like, I wanna know a little bit more about your strategy, your system. How do you work, and how do you find out about any type of complaints?
Mm-hmm. So in a general FAR day, if there was like a specific day for FARs, one of the things, or I would lay it out probably best by semester. First 3 weeks of the semester, We want to make sure that particularly those sports that are in season or will be going in season during that semester, that we have letters issued. Again, working with the athletics academic service team to make sure that we know how many students are taking classes. We're going through those rules of, have you introduced yourself to the instructor? Do you know them by name? Because, it doesn't help when they're like, I'm taking a communications class. What's his name? Like, the dude with glasses. Like, that's so helpful. The dude with glasses. Dr. Dude with glasses. But, that we really go through. We try to make sure that there's an introduction. At the beginning of each academic year, I send out a flyer to Faculty Senate to make sure that they know who I am. So if there's any student complaints that don't make it over to Hankel Hall, that they can just reach out to me and say, hey, I'm noticing that I think I have a student athlete. He says he's a student athlete. I haven't received a travel schedule. Mm-hmm. What's going on? So I try to lay out those lines of communications early so they know how to reach out to me. When it comes down to after 3 weeks, we try to do progress reports to make sure that we know who is in the green zone. Shout out to all the athletes that are in green zone. I love you. If you're in the yellow or the red zone, that means I'm going to probably have to hunt you down or have a conversation with the coach to say, like, are they going to study hall? If they're going to study hall, are they actually on the computer or are they on Instagram? Like, are they studying? But we try to get a game plan just to make sure, again, everybody feels like they're getting a quality return of investment. Then also just making sure that they have healthy balance. So again, we need to know which instructors need to have exams proctored, because that can be very unique if you're competing over a break. Particularly, it didn't happen so much this year, but in the fall, 1 year we didn't have a fall break. It was like tacked on to Thanksgiving, so it was like the whole week off. But one of the teams was actually competing that week, and so they left. And then they were trying to, some departments were doing exams, and they were gone. And then 1 year, finals or graduation fell on someone else's competition schedule. Yeah. And so we had that issue to kind of work through. And they're like, well, we need them for finals. Like, they're not here. I think they went to like South Dakota. I was like, they're not here. And so we try to look at all of those things and have a game plan so that my goal is that as a FAR, you feel like you have an academic agent. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling stressed out or you're having an issue with a professor, the student athlete knows to take it to Stokes. AD Stokes will bring it to me. And then behind the scenes, we're trying to mediate that with the good faith effort of knowing that if you say, like, this person's not giving me credit from class, that if I ask that professor, let me see the attendance roster, that they're not going to go ahead and, like, he's never been to class. And it's like, oh, man, come on right now. You got me embarrassed out here in these streets. Yeah. So we just want to kind of have like a really good relationship so that by the time that you are in competition, you can focus on competing. You already know, like, hey, this class, we need to get an exam proctor. Let's try to do that. Do you want to do this exam before you leave for competition, or do you want to do it after you get back from competition? But is that 48 hours before you leave, or is that within 48 hours of when you come back? Every team is a little bit different. If it's more physical in nature in terms of like, football or whatever, they may not want to feel like doing their exam within 48 hours of them coming back. They might be like in an ice bath. So they may opt to do something. So we try to make sure that all of those provisions are discussed beforehand so that, one, when you're competing, you're not hit by any surprises. And two, as we are ending the semester, you know that everything is taken care of and that we've covered you in a way that you were able to have that balance and nothing was off kilter. And so hopefully everyone's graduating when they need to graduate or making, the next academic or athletic decision for them. Because even when you're transferring from one institution to another, we have to verify that you're eligible. So you don't want to find out that, you're like, I'm gone, deuces. And you're like, no. Yes, you got like 5 exams, or you can't play there, and we're not going to let you go. So we want to make sure that everything is cool.
So you said you're taking care of all the sports at the same time, and I understand that those athletes are from different departments, so you have to stay in contact with all these departments at the same time as well.
Everybody.
And we heard about the news that there's a hockey teams coming in at TSU. So how does that gonna impact your work?
Well, one, I have to figure out when they actually compete because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that calendar looks like. But I think it'll fold in nicely. I mean, the great thing about being at an institution this size is you have the opportunity to be really organized without it being very chaotic. So the other programs are already in place. It will be really knowing and meeting and orienting those student athletes to TSU, to all the different parts of the athletic division, so they know where their resources are, explaining who I am and what my role is. They'll just play this podcast back. And then, again, understanding their schedule so that, because like right now, I don't know if that's like a late fall, early spring, or what does that look like, so that those faculty members can understand how to navigate them. And then more importantly, those coaches understand how to make sure that those student athletes are protected to have the best quality experience. Because I think everybody else, the cool thing about this, and even for the program, is just to make sure that I'm like invisible. I'm visibly invisible, if that could be a thing. That a lot of times I'm at your game. I know it'll make sense. But a lot of times I'm at your event, minus golf, because I'm obviously a loud person and my child is loud. So golf does not allow you to be loud, as I've learned. And they meet like really early. So they need to work on that schedule because they're like off like at 7 o'clock. That's not my life with a kid. But oftentimes I'm at your events. You guys are just competing and you're totally oblivious. And I'm peeking in and, like I said, I've been at Halley Park or I've gone out there. At times my child is regrettably stealing your tennis ball. So if you're like 18 short, she probably has it in my car. But no, seriously, she probably has it in my car. But it's good because I want to see you guys at your best. And I don't want you to feel like when I walk into a room that you're in trouble. So with a hockey team or with any team, I think it's just important for them to feel like they're a part of the family, of the TSU athletics family, that they can get acclimated to an HBCU institution, which is totally different from a PWI institution, but that they can lean on each other and all the other student athletes to help them feel settled and understand how to just navigate this, but then also just to know, like, hey, I'm having trouble. Like, my professor is, really being a jerk. It would never happen, but it does. That they can say, like, go find Dr. Arrighi and, just say, and so they'll be like, oh, she's over there. Like, they know how to find me. And when people need me, I'm there. And when they don't need me, I just kind of fall back and let you guys do what you do.
Okay, so you being this protective for us, that's great. But what are the actual consequences for student athletes if they are in some violation with the NCAA
They
rules?
can't compete. That's easy. You can't compete. Don't be naughty.
That's the only one?
In many instances, I mean, they may lose their athletic funding, their financial aid, but the biggest consequence that NCAA really has in place is that you can't compete, and you become a liability. And in that sense of competing, you become a liability for the institution, and you may even become a liability for the institution that you may want to transfer into. So one of the things that a lot of student athletes have to think about is that everywhere you go is almost kind of like a sports passport. When you are coming into the institution, the coaches are looking at your athletic ability, capacity. I have no bearing on that. I don't know what specifically they're looking for, especially for hockey. I mean, again, I watch, but don't participate. So we're going to trust athletics to handle that and the coaches and the recruiters. On the academic end, we sometimes have to have tough conversations like, okay, what is that number I see there? The 2.8. Yeah, all right. So what's the game plan there? That's a little low for me. I like 3.8s. 4.0s are wonderful, but, I can, you can still get in grad school for 2.8. I'm happy. You know, we just want to make sure that they're coming in and being successful because, again, if you are a student athlete, you know that your experience or college experience is much different than the average student, and in good ways and in bad ways. So a 2.8 means you're getting there, but that also means that we want to make sure that you don't drop below. So if I see someone with a 2.3, I'm probably crying like, no, I don't like him. I don't like him. He's gonna be Tom Brady. I don't like him. Like Tom Brady, but let's talk about this. We need you to be successful. So that's the biggest thing, is that we want to make sure that they're eligible, because there are so many implications by student athletes not being eligible.
So with all of these issues, I know that lately NIL is coming up as well. So does that has any impact on your work?
At the national level, because we're still deep diving into what that looks like, institution to institution conference, D1 to D2 to D3. And really, the biggest thing, and I really appreciate and encourage all student athletes to be actively involved in their SAC at their campus, is understanding the student impact and making sure that that NIL serves the student in the way that it's intended to serve the student. It also requires a great deal of education and awareness, so that you are not taking advantage of in that process, because you're student athletes. You didn't come to college to kind of manage a business enterprise, especially if that's not your, if your family doesn't already own a business, you're already astute in terms of how to do contracts and how to, negotiate. And then what does that mean to actually run a business? How do you file taxes and make sure that you are in compliance to have a fair contract, not one that has you beholden to any particular person or entity. So in many respects, that has been like the biggest thing, is making sure that we all understand of what NIL should be, what it should not be, and making sure that the student athlete comes out with a full, robust understanding of the responsibility of taking on those types of agreements if they so choose. So we don't want to discourage them, but there's so many telltale stories of where it's gone wrong. There's obviously those wonderful instances of where we know why NIL had to come out into the forefront, but it really comes down to making sure that everyone has the same access to resources. Because like I know right now we are T-minus 11 days from tax day. I know what it is to have an accountant. I know what it is to to file my paperwork and to have all of my receipts on what I've done. I'm not sure that the average student athlete is right now sitting there, especially if you're competing, right? If you're in the season right now, that they're thinking like, oh, did I file my taxes? Where's my accountant? Is that like an H&R Block type of a thing? Or do I need to actually have an accountant? And so that's oftentimes where they get trapped, because we don't want student athletes to find out that they owe the IRS, like, you owe them $3,000. Like, do I get a scholarship? Like, no, that's you owe the government $3,000 because you had a signing thing here and you have to pay out of state taxes here and in Tennessee. Like, there's all these like different things that you know in the land of adulting, but I don't think the average student athlete coming out of high school into college is like, yeah, I'm ready to pay taxes. It's like, no, I'm a defendant. My mama will do it. It's like, yeah, well, mama didn't know that you were doing all of these different things. But we're still learning, and the great thing is that it's going to be an ever-changing process to get it right. So I think the key thing is for all the fan base out there, is to make sure that you don't rush something which ultimately hurts the student athlete, that sometimes these things do take time. I know that's not always fun to say as a representative of NCAA, like, just make it quick. It's like, yeah, it does take time, because you're talking about over 100+ universities that look different and have different deals, from like, I just need you to sell this bracelet for $50 to I need you to do promo tours, and that might be, $5,000 per session. One doesn't really require taxes. I mean, they probably both do, but like one is like, $10 in taxes. The other one, a little bit more. Yeah.
As a way to close this podcast, I would like you to talk about your vision. At your position right now, how do you see the future? What is something that you're planning on doing? Maybe something you want to do better in the future year? Just tell me.
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. He's kicking me out, everyone. So I will say that every year that I've been far, I have learned more about how to make sure that student athletes know that I am a visibly invisible advocate of their success. I'm proud of the fact that A.D. Allen and like Jennifer Bell have allowed me to implement little things to kind of help bridge some of those gaps. In my first or second year at SPAR, we started like honorary coaches for football, so that we wanted to make sure that we went to different units and departments to say, hey, thank you so much for working with our student athletes. We know that, at times we can be crazy, but we would like to host you in the suite during a football game and acknowledge you for the work that you do to hopefully build bridges when we need to call on them in the future. At the same time, and I'm excited because I have lots and lots of good things in my office that I need to bring over to Henkel Hall. Every year at the end of the semester, I have my Scholar Athlete Awards, just to go ahead and just to make sure that, again, you may have seen me, but you probably haven't paid attention to me. Great, but but I'm recognizing those students that have a 3.0 or above. And so I'll be sitting there getting those awards packaged and dropped off so that at graduation they can wear their medals and just know that I've seen their academic excellence, as well as their coaches and the fans have seen them as excellent athletes. But I felt like that was really important because there is so much that is generated around football and basketball, and that's not a dig against them or any of the other sports, but on the landscape, when you walk away from an institution, from what I've heard from other SAC representatives, is that they want to make sure that they walk away from an institution, whether they've been there a year or 4 years, that they've been seen, that all of their time has been valued, and so they have relationships with their faculty members and even their departments. But I wanted to be intentional about those deans taking ownership of, you have like 3 4.0 students that are in your department that are working their butts off, to get their degree. And some of them are some difficult majors. I've looked at the major, I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is. What are they doing over there? But also because they know that they're student athletes and they see that they're working hard and they're competing and then they're performing well. Can we acknowledge them like, hey, help us out? Are there additional funds to, help support them as they're doing this, because they're representing your college? And so a lot of them are more aware, and I feel really great about that. And I want to keep that going, especially as we are going into a new administration, making sure that whoever is serving as president of the institution is, I don't want to say a sports president, because I know people are like, what is a sports president? But I want them to feel like engaged, like, hey, these are your student athletes. Let's find ways to not only acknowledge everybody that's doing well at the university, because we obviously want everybody to graduate, but, coming to their minus golf, we got to figure something out. We got to put us in a bubble so we can just hold up signs or in a cart and just, I don't know. I'll talk to Coach McGrath about that. But just making sure that everyone is intentional about showing up and being seen. If they can't make it to your meet, at least, when you go to class, that next session saying, I saw you on ESPN Plus, or I saw the ticker feed on TSU Tigers. Good job, or congratulations. Because I think it does change the narrative of I'm just so tired. I just want to go to sleep. Like, no one cares of saying like, oh man, like someone knew that I got a 3.6 and someone knew. And I'm like, yeah, here's your medal. Here's your award. I see you. So it's every year I'm learning to be better because I'm willing to listen, and I'm listening to like Stack here, also at NCAA, just to make sure that where I can fit in, I can do my part to know that you do have a voice and a friend and an ally to see you succeed.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, or?
No, I just thank you again for having me on your awesome podcast, #1 podcast at TSU.
Oh yeah, we are. Okay, thank you very much then, and have a great day.
You do the same.